Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lulia. Rain begins late tonight with a low of 33. Rain and some thunder expected throughout Saturday with a high of 47.
Skip the hassle of appliance replacement. Warner Stellian makes it simple. And through Monday, save $50 to $500 on each qualifying appliance. You could save over $3,700 with stacked savings you can't get elsewhere. Shop our 10 Minnesota stores or at warnerstellian.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. That's my colonized name and taxpayer name, Wendy. And as you know, we discuss national and local Twin City and national Wisconsin news and events in the Native community. And as you know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Alliant Energy, powering beyond.
Awesome. Hey, so we're mixing it up a little bit here. On Fridays, we have State Senator Mary Kunesh of Minnesota on, and we have her on early tonight. And I thought it would be kind of fun. First of all, welcome, Senator.
Nice to be here tonight.
Yeah, and I thought it's great to have you, and I thought it'd be great because we're expanding our brand, and we're in Milwaukee now, and of course Madison and Chicago and the Twin Cities, and just talk about a little bit about who you are and how you got to this place as a senator of Minnesota. And I think it's a great story, and I don't know if you mind giving us a little background. It would be fun to hear that story again.
Oh, happy to. I am State Senator Mary Kunesh from Minnesota. I was born here in our capital city of St. Paul, But when I was a little girl, my dad moved us about 80 miles north into what was then a very small agricultural village, right where the Mississippi and the Watab Creek met. And we have since learned as adults that was a meeting place and a village of the indigenous folks. And but there was a trail there. It was called the Indian Trail, and we kids ran those trails every day. But it was a great place to grow up because we could run and play in the woods and in the creek and in the river, pretty much unobstructed by adults or anything like that. I came from a really large family of 13 kids, so we looked out for each other. Plus, we had tons and tons of friends. So it was sort of an idyllic, Tom Sawyer-ish kind of upbringing. My family, my mom's father and she were both enrolled tribal members of the Standing Rock Lakota tribe. My grandpa was born out there and came to St. Paul as a young man with his mother and some of his siblings, but he was the only one that stayed with his mother in St. Paul. Some of them went back to the reservation, others down to Chicago. One sister got married and lived elsewhere. So there's a lot of history. That side of the family also were the women were married to French traders and sort of voyageurs and translators that came down from Canada. So their family name is Primo. And my grandfather's father's last surname is Kelly. And that father came from Duluth, Minnesota. But his family came from Ireland via Canada down into Minnesota. So I'm kind of a hodgepodge of genetics. And my father was Slovakian, Czechoslovakian, and Scottish. So I'm like this really, one of those typical American melting pot kind of people. And we've done our 23andMe DNA, and so there were a few surprises in there, but that was all right. And so I grew up here in Minnesota as an adult. I became a teacher, a library media specialist, and I taught for 25 years. I have 3 adult children. One of them is a political community organizer in Take Action Minnesota. My other daughter she has her own craft sausage business, and she's getting her food truck ready to go this summer. And then my son is like a political policy director for one of our county commissioners. So we have a really busy family. I was elected first to the House of Representatives here in Minnesota for 4 years and got some really good work done. I was elected. There were already 2 Native women in the House. Susan Allen was the first Native American woman in Minnesota. She was elected, I believe, in 2015, maybe even before that, 13. And then our now Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan was already serving, and I was elected with another Native woman, Representative Jamie Becker-Finn. So at one time, there were 4 Native women in our Minnesota House of Representatives. There were no Native folks in the Senate. And Peggy went on to become our lieutenant governor. Susan retired. Jamie is still there and is the chair of our Judiciary Committee. But then we were joined by another really delightful woman, Heather Keeler, who is also doing incredible work. So when the opportunity for me came to run for a Senate seat, knowing that there was no Native American representation over there, and there hadn't been for a number of years. Actually, Representative Becker-Finn's father served in the Senate for a while, but there'd never been a woman of Indigenous ancestry that served in our Minnesota Senate. And so I ran for that seat. I won that seat, and trying to continue the really good work that we've been able to do for our Indigenous people here in Minnesota, because it hadn't been focused on ever. really and truly ever. And we're making, between 4 women, we've made some incredible headways.
Yes, you have. And I just want to back up because I know the story, but how you decided to run. You were with your daughter at, isn't that how, could you?
Yeah. I was still teaching, and my daughter graduated with a political science degree and went down to Chicago for a while where she was a community organizer, then came back and decided she wanted to work on a campaign. And so she got a job for a gubernatorial campaign. And, just from the very beginning, grassroots start of this campaign, she moved home. And so I was sort of, vicariously watching and following her and getting to understand how the process works, getting to know more of the movers and shakers in our state, the politicians. And, when you're on a campaign like that, they're always looking for volunteers. So I was sort of a filler in it, whatever way they needed. If they needed somebody on the phones, I would go in and make phone calls. If they needed somebody at an endorsement convention, I would go there. If they needed if they wanted Eliane to go out to Greater Minnesota in January when it's cold and snowy, I went with her to make sure she was okay. And so I kind of figured out the system that way and got more involved in the politics in my own area, in my Senate district. And when our representative decided to run for the Senate seat, she came to me and said, "We'd like you to run for this seat. We think you'd be a great representative." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And that's really how it started. So it's not often that you follow your kids into something. It's usually the other way around. But in this instance, I think it worked out really well.
Yeah, that's a great story. And your daughters are awesome. I got really, I was like, she introduced Bernie when Bernie was in town the last election, and Bernie Sanders, and I'm going, I know her. It's like, wait a minute, can I get up there with him? But no, it's awesome story. We'll talk a little bit more about your past, and then also some current events that's happening that are, affecting us all. Wendy,
yeah,
we're with State Senator Mary Kunesh of Minnesota here, and we're just having a nice Friday conversation. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
We are your relatives.
We are your relations.
Brothers,
sisters,
sons,
daughters.
And some of us are your grandchildren.
We are your community. Historically, we held places of honor and respect. Because of the impact of colonization, some of us are rejected, thrown out from family, friends, and community, set up as targets for sexual violence, sex trafficked, humiliated, tortured, and murdered. Everybody has the right to be safe. We are your relatives. Remember,
homophobia is not traditional.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Children's Minnesota raises up children's health by raising the standards, hands, voices, the bar, the stakes, the questions, and the curtain on raising kids' health to the highest priority. With the most pediatric experts in the upper Midwest, we're setting the stage because kids need us, all of us. So let's raise them up so every kid can reach their best health. Children's Minnesota, the kid experts.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
Wow, Wendy, State Senator, is sharing this great story with us.
I love hearing background stories of how people got started or how they got interested in what they're doing. I think it's so fascinating.
It really is. And then, State Senator, you have done so much work, and I'd like you to talk a little bit and blow your own horn about especially the MMIW, because I know one of my other jobs, I'm really deep in politics in Wisconsin, and they're behind. They're behind in what the great work that you've done, and they're trying, but it's been really amazing to see. And as you are doing all this, I feel like I've been learning along the way, because you've been on the show for 4 years, and you've been working hard on this and letting us all know about the MMIWR situation. So I wonder if you could just really, toot your own horn and talk about the hard work and how you came about the work that you've done, first as a state representative and now as a state senator.
I have to admit that I really didn't know what to expect when I was elected and when, walked into the Capitol, and now I am supposed to be creating laws or pushing back on bad laws. But the opportunity was there for me to do a lot of things, and I think it was the right time in Minnesota as well. After my first session in 2017, I listened and learned about the MMIW situation up in Canada and the report that they were doing, the national study. And then there were stories, horrible stories, that were coming out more and more of women that were missing and had gone murdered. And, really and truly, those were the inspirations for me to create a Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force here in Minnesota. And I didn't feel like I really could put this piece of legislation together and then hand it to the communities and say, here's a task force. How do you like that? I really needed them to guide me and to mold the task force that I was putting together. And I had no idea what a task force does or who should be on it or how it works or how you fund it, but we went step by step and we figured it out as we went. And I asked women and organizations and agencies that worked with violence against women, especially specifically Native women, to come to the Capitol and work on the bill with me, and they did. I mean, we literally went through it line by line and edited it and added and subtracted and negotiated, and that's really how the first bill came about. And I am a Democrat and was in the minority in the House at the time. And I knew that the Republicans, they're very fiscally conservative, so we had to keep the cost of the task force very slim, and we did. And I did introduce it that first year, but it didn't pass. It was right at the end of session, and the stories that were told, the testimony that was presented, I think was so overwhelming and so heartbreaking. And so emotional that we all needed a second session to figure it all out. And so the next year we came back and we passed it. We passed it unanimously in the House, and we passed that the creation of the task force in the Senate. And that was like a miracle. Honestly, it was a miracle that we could do that in 2 years. and it's a very comprehensive bill. It asks a lot of questions. It required a lot of collaboration with state agencies and offices, and they were all willing to participate in it. In fact, there were agencies that didn't charge, because state agencies can charge that in a fiscal note to say, oh, we expect it's going to take 40 hours to participate in this. We're going to pass that cost on to the task force. There were some agencies that said, no, we won't charge you anything for it. So that kept that bill very trim. And then, it was COVID came, and we couldn't go out into community the way we wanted to, but people still shared their information and their stories with us. And we finished that task force and came up with a list of recommendations. And the very first recommendation was to create a permanent office to continue the work, to continue the recommendations. So we did pass that last year, and we just hired the permanent office is created. We just hired the executive director, and she will have 3 other people to work with her. She's a Native woman. She's been in the public safety spectrum as her profession. She's community, so she's perfect for this. And then we start working on all the requests and the suggestions that we put into the report. And that's our next step. Like right now, I'm trying to create a reward system, a reward pool of money to tease out information. And here's another thing, I haven't told you this, but I just created a bill to create a unique, how they have vanity license plates and for like hunting and fishing, and we've got the lady slipper and the loon, all the different, Minnesota things. I want to create a MMIR license plate, because when you buy, or when you get one of those as a license for your car, a certain amount of that goes into a fund. And so that will be one of the ways that we will be able to pool those dollars for the reward system. So
that's a great idea, and I know we'll be getting one.
Oh, absolutely, yes,
definitely.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so that's the work that that's some of the work that I've been doing. But we've been addressing ICWA issues, jurisdictional issues for law on and off reservation, making sure that our tribes are getting the health care that they were promised, and making sure that our BIE, our Bureau of Indian Education schools, the federal schools, are funded well enough as every other kid in Minnesota. There's just a plethora of bills that we've been able to put together, and it's great having Representative Becker-Finn and Representative Keeler in the House, because we can just like, hey, you're going to take this in the Senate, hey, you're going to take this in the House, and we don't have to find authors who are not familiar with the issue. And I think we're gonna keep making some really good trouble, shall we say.
Yeah, somebody did put that up on our chat, the good trouble. One of the things too that I'm going to be working on is try and get Ho-Chunk as one of the 12 tribes that are recognized in this state, because we've been here for 10,000 years. We got 3 minutes in this segment, Mary. One of the things that I was thinking when you were talking too is something that you talked about a long time on our show. And when I went to Wounded Knee 2 years ago, I listened to on the way there and back, and that was that documentary that really kind of talks about MMIW in a certain way, but also ICWA and the 60 Scoop. And do you want to share that with people? Because I've told we have an advertiser, Wix, that would do our candles, and he's addicted to podcasts, and I told him about that one. And
Finding Cleo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a couple minutes. You want to just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The 60 Scoop was a movement in Canada. During the 60s, they literally would go into the homes of Native American people and just take the kids, just take them for whatever reason. And they quickly were put into the foster care system and then moved into the adoption system. So you broke up these families. They went all over Canada, into Minnesota. I'm helping a woman that has contacted me, helping her to identify her birth family. Her story is very, very tragic, but we're working on, finding her family and where she came from. She was at a day school, and Canada is doing things that nobody else is doing. They have they're paying restitution for all of this. You can apply for victims of the 60 Scoop and of these boarding schools can apply for restitution. And so I'm helping her do that, and it's fascinating trying to put the pieces together for her. But it's extremely tragic, and this Finding Cleo is the most heartbreaking story. The brother is looking for Cleo. He promised he would never lose her, and they found the story, but I won't tell you how it ends, folks. You got to listen to the podcast. It's fascinating.
Absolutely, it is fascinating, and I think one of the interesting things I told our friend was that I really feel like the brother did it, and but that's something we can talk about off air. But it's an award-winning Canadian podcast, and it's worth a listen. And I think I'll listen to it again because it's our history. It's history everywhere.
Yeah.
Mary, we're gonna make you work a little harder. We're gonna have you come on another segment here, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us. J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in Indian country. Unequal gender roles that were forced on us by colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people. There's a lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our communities, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hi, Minnesota. This is David Packman. You can hear my show every weekday at 2, right after Tom Hartman on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
I love the Toyotas I've gotten at Rudy Luther Toyota, but I keep going back because of Luther's top-notch customer service. A great example, the Luther Advantage Card. With every new and used vehicle purchase, you'll get 3 years of 10 cents off per gallon of gas at holiday station stores and $6 off the Works car washes. And I can tell you, it will save you a lot of money over 3 years. The Luther Advantage Card keeps you happy in your Rudy Luther vehicle. Find out more at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, I'm Adam Ostrowski of Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, and I would like to tell you about a big new tax credit. Starting this year, earn a 26% federal tax credit based on the purchase and installation costs of an efficient wood stove or fireplace insert.
We got our wood stove from Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to lower our carbon footprint and to harvest our own renewable energy. Now you can get 26% off the cost in the form of a federal tax credit.
At Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, it is our job to find a place for fire that works in your life. We have a diverse selection of fireplace products. Clean wood burning, convenient gas burning, and easy to install electric stoves and fireplaces for inside your home or outdoors too.
Fire offers comfort from the cold and warms the heart. At Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, there are so many ways to discover your place for fire, with over 35 working indoor and outdoor fireplaces. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces on the corner of East Franklin Avenue and Riverside in Minneapolis. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
Do you believe in ghosts? Ever wondered if aliens from other planets visit the Earth? Have you ever thought about whether Bigfoot is real? My name is Greg Bakken, and on my new show, Ghostbox Radio, we'll have these conversations about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, or just the unusual, bringing together guests who are experts in these fields. Join me every Sunday at 4 p.m. for Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken on AM 950, even if you're a skeptic.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lulia. Rain begins late tonight with a low of 33. Rain and some thunder expected throughout Saturday with a high of 47. The locally owned Vinaigrette has been offering the finest olive oils and vinegars since 2009. That's Vinaigrette, Xerxes Avenue and 50th Street in Minneapolis, or at vinaigrettemn.com.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, we're here with State Senator Mary Kunesh, and we're really, it was fun to reminisce with her on how she got where she is right now. But I think what we would love to talk to you about now is what are you working on now, and maybe even talk about what we talked a little bit about at first, our relatives in Europe that are you're wearing a scarf in solidarity to right now. Whoops, Mary, I got you muted. Sorry, go ahead again.
Oops, there we go. Minnesota is really, it is kind of a melting pot here, but Northeast Minneapolis is so unique. It is a community that has welcomed immigrants, especially immigrant workers, for, hundreds of years. And they're the ones that built the flour mills and really kind of built the state, even up north, the miners. They came over after the wars, after World War I and World War II. And if you visit Northeast Minneapolis, it's on the other side of the river from downtown. And we have Ukrainian church and German church and Polish churches and Lebanese churches and Russian churches. And I mean, all these incredible European folks that came and brought their foods and brought their customs, and they all lived together and helped each other in Minnesota. And they'd say, with every church that there is, there's a bar. So there's the German bar and this bar and that bar. But it was really interesting because there was a settlement house in Northeast Minneapolis. It was called Eastside Neighborhood Services. And a really good friend of mine, a Ukrainian woman, Mary Ostapenko-Anstedt, works there. But the immigrants would come to this settlement house, and they had these small, little cubicle apartments that the families would squeeze into, and there would be a shared bathroom and maybe a shared kitchen. And they would stay there until they kind of got acclimated and the dad got a job and they found another place to live. So you had this incredible amalgamation of all these diverse communities. And so it has made Northeast Minneapolis very unique. Restaurants, bars, churches, and everybody pretty much got along. There was some rivalry, but they got along. So now comes this invasion of the Ukraine, and the community there is just heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken. I don't think anyone even wanted to imagine that the invasion would happen, let alone the way that it has, all the way up to the nuclear plant that they got yesterday. But I'm wearing this scarf. It's a Ukrainian scarf, and I think in Russia they call it a babushka scarf, grandmother's scarf. And I remembered reading, and now I've seen a lot of different posts about these scarves. They're called Kokum Scars, and they kind of honor the relationship between the indigenous people. And again, this sort of started in Canada, and it's a kind of a movement across the country. But it shows the unity between the indigenous people here in the United States and the people from Ukraine who immigrated to the prairies, because we had a lot of Russians and a lot of those East Europeans come. In fact, my dad, who's Czech, his family came first to Cleveland, worked in the foundries, and went to Nebraska to farm. There were no trees there, so they came to Minnesota where there were trees. But the Kokum scarves are sort of a sign of solidarity and support for the Ukrainians. And I'm seeing a lot of Native women wearing them and sporting them in support.
Yeah, that's amazing. So just a transition, what's happening up in the Capitol now? I mean, a week ago we were talking, and as a couple people, as a matter of fact, sent me one of the groups you're in, the education group, and how rude these Republican males are towards you. It just was like really sad to see, and we're here to support you. And so what else is going on? Hopefully less of that.
Sure. Well, I think what you're referring to, I sit on the Education Committee and Finance Committee in the Senate, and we've been hearing Republican bills because it's a Republican majority now in the Senate. And these are not, I would not say, number one, I don't think they're well-written bills, and I don't believe that the outcome of the bill is in the best interest of Minnesotans. And a lot of it is following that far right movement of restricting teachers and schools in a lot of different ways that hasn't happened before around curriculum. Parents have to examine it. Teachers have to make their curriculum for the year, their lesson plans for the school year, available at least 2 weeks before school even starts. Well, teachers are back, about 2 weeks before school starts.
Right.
And there are things change. Events come up. There's a snow day in Minnesota. You get behind. You adjust your curriculum. And when that happens, you have to, as a teacher, post them immediately, any changes, plus any of the resources that you're using. And this has often been a way for some of these very ultra-conservative and, not wanting to have like a white supremacist education. It's a way for them to really attack the teachers and attack the school system and make teachers' life much more difficult. Teachers are leaving in droves.
Right.
The disrespect, the unfunded mandates, the increase in class sizes and not enough resources, not enough mental health support, not enough of anything. And it's teach to the test. I mean, who really wants to do that? It's almost impossible. And so we've been really pushing back on those bills. We did hear some of them just yesterday on our Senate floor. There were a couple bills that came up, and we spent hours debating it and asking questions and demanding answers. We didn't get through all of them. But some of this, and a lot of it is political grandstanding for Republicans. This is an election year.
Right.
We have 2 senators that are running for governor. So they both have almost identical bills that they're trying to get passed. And so it's sort of a tit for tat sort of thing. And so it's more grandstanding than really having the interests of the teachers and really the students at heart. It's really, it's hard.
I think too, one of the national things is to try to get rid of the teachers union, and they haven't been able to because the union is very strong. And this is a way, by wearing out the teachers and kind of a back door, getting rid of the union, and by having teachers quit.
Yeah. And when you look at what teachers strike about, more often than not, yes, it could be a salary because they have to support their families as well. And we put in tons of more hours than we're ever paid for. Remember, these are 9-month contracts. These are not year-round 24/7 contracts. But more often than not, when we're striking, it's to get the resources for the student.
Right.
It's to lower class sizes so that we can differentiate and address the needs of individual students. It's to get the help and the resources in those schools like mental health and social workers. It's to make sure that there's a phy-ed teacher so they get their physical health, that there's art and music and library media specialists so that we are, educating well-rounded, well-informed children. And not just, teach to a test. And so, when they try to break the union, it's not for the right reasons.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think teaching to the test is detrimental. And I was in a inner city school, and I always thought it was really when they put out these kind of tests and compare education and compare the teachers, compare the students, is really, really unfair, because a lot of times, more times than not, as you know, Mary, we deal with people, Wendy, that really didn't know where they were going to stay that night.
Kids,
and the families, and it's really hard to compare scores with somebody that's in the suburbs that has a nice big house and swimming pool, where a lot of our clientele and students didn't.
Yeah, I remember you coming home one day and telling me that a new teacher was giving a student a hard time about something. I don't remember what it was, but you said to the teacher, go easy on this kid. This kid is homeless. He's living in a shelter. He has more things to worry about than what what the teacher was saying to the kid.
Or lowering is great,
Yeah.
because in a punitive way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's hard. And that issue of homelessness and stress on children, it's everywhere. It's in every community. And when we think of the historic trauma to our Native kids, to our Latino, our Black families,
Yep.
we've talked about this, the epigenetics of that kind of trauma and violence, literally changing the genetic composition from generation to generation, making them more vulnerable to so many things. We have to take that into consideration and not expect a one size fits all. It's just impossible.
That's educate them and turn them teach them how to think. I always told new teachers, these kids aren't going to remember what you taught them. They're going to remember how you treated them.
Exactly.
We're building communities and stronger students. But Mary, thank you for all you do for us in Minnesota, what you did as an educator, now as a legislator, and what you do for Native Roots Radio, because we really appreciate you, and to put these good words all over the country. It's all over Turtle Island. It's really awesome.
Well, Wopalatanka, thank you so much. Pinagigi.
Hey, we'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
This is Winona LaDuke of Honor the Earth, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm Awake.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Hey, I want to introduce my awesome and beautiful wife, Wendy, the co-star of this show. We talk about our sacred animals here in a good way, and I learn a lot, and you not just talk about the wolf and the bear and the clans that are in our relatives in the native, but you talk about everything. Like sometimes I wish I was in the elephant clan.
I know, right? I know. And just by looking at articles and reading things and researching a little, I learn a lot. So it's really great. And I appreciate the time that I'm able to do this. So I really appreciate it. As everybody already knows, my name is Hana Jihihani. That means cares for them. And I was given that name by my Dega Curtis. And as always, Curtis, thank you so much for naming me that. And Curtis goes by Mashke Hanajinga, which means walks on white clouds. So as always, thank you. I'm a humane policy volunteer leader for the Humane Society of the United States. And I work on animal issues at the local and state level, which I'm really love to do, and I'm really happy to do it. Before we get started, let me just say this one thing. Humane Lobby Day in Minnesota, just for the orientation and to just check it out, is on March 15th. So you just have to Google Humane Lobby Day Minnesota 2022 and register for the orientation, and then you could check it out and see if you if something that if you're interested in it. I've been doing it for 6-8 years. 5 years. It's definitely more than 5, probably at least 8 years. Once a year, we meet with our legislators and we present different bills, like Mary was talking about, to our legislators and ask them to pass humane laws in Minnesota. And it's really empowering.
I think you're going on your 8th year, because I saw pictures from 2014 when we were tabling at places.
Oh, yeah. So it must be 8 years. Wow. That's amazing. And also Howling for Wolves is having a Wolf Day 2022. And that's happening on April 6th, which is a Wednesday, non-lethal, keep the packs intact. So you just have to go to Howling for Wolves Wolf Day 2022 to find out information and register for that. So that should be fun. Yeah. But I usually on Fridays I keep it light and happy and fun. But I want to talk about, I have the Humane World. So the Humane World is a blog that's written by Kitty Block, and Kitty Block is the president and CEO of the Humane Society of the United States. I know, right? This cat's crazy. Seriously.
Talking about a kitty and Kitty Block.
I know, right? She must be hearing the word kitty. But this just came out today, and I'm really happy to see that the Humane Society of the United States is really helping animals in the Ukraine. Wow. And I just wanted to read a little bit of this. Chaos, and it's dated today, March 4th, 2022. With the weight of Russia's invasion of Ukraine heavy in our hearts, we are thinking of the Ukrainian people and their animals and identifying ways to help them now and over the long term. How could we do otherwise with a torrent of images and news reports flooding all over us? People desperately fleeing with their pets in tow, showing the world that they value their animals' lives just as they do their own and their children. I mean, I see these women in pictures, they have a stroller and they have their dog in their backpack or their cat under their shirt or, but they weren't leaving without taking their animal. And I really feel that way too, Robert. If we were in that circumstance, I really feel like I would, we would just pack them up. It wouldn't even be a question in our minds. They're part of our family.
I'd bring my baseball cards and the dogs.
Baseball cards. Oh my God.
The old ones.
Of course you would.
Oh
my gosh. And amid the chaos, shelters, rescue groups, and veterinary clinics in the Ukraine are trying to keep their operations going, making every effort to provide safety and urgent care to animals caught up in the conflict. Relief workers and organizations are also doing all they can to clear the way for emergency entry into neighboring nations for Ukraine and their pets. Thanks to the kindness and generosity of our partner, family-owned Mars Incorporated, we're in position to respond right away to the needs of the Ukraine animals and those seeking to help them. In our previous collaboration, a worldwide COVID-19 relief effort, we were able to keep more than 280,000 animals in 36 countries on 5 continents, providing desperately needed food, veterinary care, and other support. With no time wasted, we're prioritizing support to shelters, rescue groups, and veterinary clinics in the Ukraine. It is vitally important to sustain these institutions and their efforts to maintain operations and services. In many cases, they are helping individuals and families who cannot flee but are trying to hold on and care for their pets and other animals. In addition, some groups are caring for animals on the street. The demands and needs of the moment are substantial and will continue to be significant in the future. To assist these organizations, Humane Society International is collaborating with its partner in Ukraine, U Animals. I talked about this rescue organization like when the war first started, to assist and prioritize the needs of shelters and clinics actively engaged in relief. Humane Society International in Germany is working with Berliner Titerfell, who provide refugees with pet food and necessary supplies for their animals, as well as veterinary care if needed. We're also planning to support animal groups in neighboring countries such as Poland and Romania as they assist refugees arriving from Ukraine and their pets. The groups trying to provide relief are going to need food, carriers, medicine, and critical supplies. The same is true for zoos and wildlife rescue centers in Ukraine, and we'll do our best to help them meet their needs too. For any of us, having to leave our homes under such horrific circumstances would be devastating enough, but one should have to jeopardize their own safety because of uncertainty about evacuating their own canine or cat companion. Having to do so without food, medicine, or documentation concerning their pets, health and vaccination compounds have already nightmarish scenario. That's why it is encouraging to see the quick response of the European Commission, which recommended that veterinary paperwork requirements be relaxed for dogs, cats, and other companion animals traveling in Ukraine, refugees seeking safe passage with the European Union. To their credit, a number of EU nations promptly just did that. People don't have time to go look for papers. I would not even know where to start in this house, which drawer or cupboard our pets, vaccination records are. I wouldn't even know what to do.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really happy. This is, taking a lot of time, people support, money. If you'd like to donate to the humanitarian crisis, to the Humane Society of the United States or the Humane Society International, and I'm really happy that they are doing the work. And a lot of people don't know this, but the Humane Society of the United States, they just don't go in and run in and try to rescue pets in a disaster or something that happens. They are asked. They wait until they are asked to come in and help, and they have been. They have been asked and they're there and they're supporting all this food and whatever. So
hey, Peony Gigi, thank you for that great update. We got to send our prayers out to not only our four-legged ones in Ukraine, but also the families there.
Oh my gosh!
I can't
absolutely.
even imagine.
I can't either. My heart, I cry. I swear, I just can't even hold back my tears sometimes.
Prayers to them, and keep your strength up. We know, as Native Americans, we know how you feel. We've been occupied and colonized too. Shout out to St. Paul and Minneapolis public school teachers that are on the verge of striking also. And a big shout out to State Senator Mary Kunesh for being on today. We're still here. We are the seventh generation.
Free Leonard Peltier.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.